Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cardboard Herald. Today we are doing another Casual Friday discussion in which I invite one of my gamer friends and colleagues onto the show in order to talk about our completely objective lists. Like there is irrefutable evidence in order to support these lists of our personal opinions when it comes to games. And today I have on one of my longest friends, Chris Douglas, on the show. He has contributed to the Cardboard Herald in the past. We've gone to conventions together. He's a fantastic musician and gamer and a fellow old school Bosco's Comics in Anchorage, Alaska clerk, just like myself. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi.
Yep. Yeah, that was a build-up. Are you ready for this?
Thanks, Jack. No, I'm looking forward to finding out what your top 5 coffee games are, since we're both giant coffee drinkers.
Yeah, we have our coffee cups on the show right now. We're ready for it. Mine is actually insulated because I just brought it in from going out on a hike, and it is still apparently warming up here in Alaska. Not the same situation that you have going on down there in Arizona, but we are talking about our top 5 each, maybe top 10 total. We'll see if we have any overlap coffee games. And when you proposed this list to me, I was thinking about, like, what coffee games? Like, there's so many different directions you can go with this. Because you know me, I drink the hell out of some coffee. Every game is a coffee game in my book. But when I think about, like, a game where you're like, yeah, I want a nice cup of coffee and just, you know, kind of a pleasant time, and the game is kind of the platform in which I'm interacting with the other person over this cup of coffee, I started to get a picture of the games that we have. So did you have any trouble scraping together your list, or did you immediately know where you wanted to go with this?
A very similar criteria. I was kind of torn between two facets of it. One way of, like, you know, keeping your hands free, keeping things social, keeping things light, and then some aspects of, well, like, coffee getting me way into the game. So my top 2 picks definitely contradict the social aspect of it, but fun nonetheless, though. So.
Okay, well, let's see where it goes. Let's start out with your number 5. What do you got for me, Chris?
All right, my number 5 is Azul Pavillion.
Ooh.
So we've been playing a bunch of the Azul games, okay, and we've gotten big into the Azul Pavillion. The idea is we've got our cup of coffee, and we're just puzzling. Everything's calm. It's mentally stimulating. We've got all these colors, and it's just this very calm after-dinner puzzle fest with a little cup of coffee. I love the thinkiness of it that kind of mixes with the probably overstimulation that I should not be doing in the evenings. But it just works so well for me when my mind's racing. I can just lay into and build ceilings all night.
Yeah, well, that's actually exactly where I was going with this. I thought of a lot of language-independent games, you know, things where it's more instinctive and almost like artistic that you were building out something. Kind of like a game that borders on being a puzzle as well. But for my number 5, this is interesting because I went with what I feel is like the arch nemesis of Azul, which is Sagrada, because those games came out about the same time, and there were a lot of people who were drawing battle lines between Azul and Sagrada, and I happened to fall on the Sagrada side of things, though Azul is a pretty damn good game, and in some ways a prettier game. I mean, you can take or leave that aesthetic, but to me, Sagrada just has this fantastic puzzle aspect to it. The rolling the dice has a nice sound and tone, especially on like a nice wooden kitchen table or something. And the mix of the colors and the numbers together, giving you just enough of a crunchiness that you feel engaged, but still it's like you're building up a piece of art in front of you, so it doesn't feel overly strenuous. And like a cup of coffee, where you are really starting to zing by the end of it, if it's a good cup of coffee, the stranglehold as you play Sagrada, the noose that's tightening around your neck as you have fewer and fewer options by the time you get to the end, you know, it really amps up that tension. So it kind of mirrors the effect of caffeine on you, I guess.
I agree. I like how, like, wiry it gets towards the end. And one of my favorite things is the size of the dice too.
Yeah.
Raise my hands up to drink more coffee when I'm rolling those littler dice. I really am a big fan of those little dice.
We're both guys who have really big hands, so those little dice, they're very cute. Though slotting them into those spots, sometimes like my fat fingers are like bumping things off. So that's a point against them, I guess.
Okay, my next pick for number 4 is kind of a classic of ours. It was one of the first games that we got into, and we still play it religiously Friday nights, and that's Splendor.
It's so good.
Splendor is one of our games. It's considered one of our big ones. I feel like the gem dealer. I look really deep into the cards. I wonder if some people like really look at the cards. Like I see that I've got a mine, and then I've got my employee, and then I've got my building, and then I'm sipping on my cup of coffee when everything just starts going on its own and automating with my gem service.
I actually considered Splendor, but the intensity of Splendor for me was something that I ended up going away from. Like, I was like, yeah, this is this nice game where you can just kind of get in the zone and you don't even have to talk. Like, once you've played enough Splendor, it becomes like this automated thing. I don't even have to interact with other people at the table because I am in the zone, and it feels somewhat meditative, except there's an intensity to it because you just want it to be your turn. You have a drive. Get it back to me. I want it to be my turn. I want to get that card. I want to get that tile. And you better not take the last of the black tiles from me because I need those in order to build this next thing. Like, to me, there's a desperate momentum to Splendor that I think is perfect for some people, for sure. I mean, I'm sure it's perfect for you, but for me, that is the opposite of a calm game. That is a short but very passionate game. You have a bad romance with Splendor when you're playing it.
Yeah, towards the end there, when like if someone has 14 points, I'm just like, and then I always end up being a gem or two short to try to make the last swing because I messed up somewhere earlier. I guess more too playing on that wiry funness of just on that line. That line we've been bringing up here. So
my next game is a game that I never thought that I'd see on one of these lists that I was doing, but it just fit perfectly within here. And that's Harbour. It's an old TMG game, Tasty Adventure Games, by Scott Almes. And Scott Almes has done tons of games, but is probably best known at this point for the Tiny Epic series. And I'm like, you know what? Put that Tiny Epic series to the side. If you want a tiny game by Scott Almes, get Harbour. I mean, one, it's got this great theme with these really vibrant characters. It's like fantasy, but dockside. It's, all grimy and nasty and piratey and, feels like you're about to, get swallowed by a whale or something. Basically, imagine Captain Ahab as a goblin, and that's your theme for Harbour. But it's a single worker placement game where your worker is just traveling from these different spots so that people are going to purchase and put in front of them. And it's very casual in the sense that it doesn't necessarily have an intensity to it, but there's definitely strategy as you go about. There's asymmetric player powers. It's in a real concise box. And for a case in point of this was a game that I used to keep in my office, and it was in regular rotation for me and some of my colleagues to go down to the coffee shop and play at lunch just to, knock out something in half an hour and have a great time. I think Harbour is something that doesn't see enough discussion these days as, one of these shorter games that still feels like it has a degree of strategic hooks to it. And I really love that game.
Yeah, Harbour was one of the first games that we got into when it came to worker placement. We've actually had some discussions about, me and my wife had some discussions about Harbour in regards to it being like I called it the skeleton of a game one time.
I can see that.
Yeah, I felt like it was you do this and you do this, and it's just kind of like one at a time, very chill, not like I'm going to trade in this card and get 10 resources and then convert those to this, and then I'm going to fill this order and get these victory points. It's more like just one piece at a time.
The opposite of Misery Farm. You know, it's not Agricola for sure.
Right. But it definitely got us into that though. We started being like, oh, hey, this is like, we used it to really, like, that was one of the first games we played when it came to that worker placement. And then next thing you know, it was City of Iron, Agricola, man, you name it, Le Havre. We played some Caverna. We started really digging into those tiny epic games. We like the tiny epic mechs and dinosaurs over here. So
yeah,
just for a side note,
for a side plug for worst Scott Alms games, you know, whatever. You can listen to Chris if you want.
You got me into the tiny epic games, man.
I know. All right. Well then let's hear what you got for your number 3 here, Chris.
My number 3 is Istanbul with the coffee expansion.
Well, okay, that's a little on the nose, but I love it. Okay.
Friday night, we do this thing where we do this Friday night coffee gaming, and we'll be like, let's go shopping. And so we've talked about this in the past. Some of the setup with Istanbul, being very involved. So for Friday night game, we get it set up. We maybe go on a walk. We'll pour the coffee up, and then we'll get in there, and then I turn into the bakshish. That's it? Bakshish?
Yeah, bakshish, man. No, if you're going to play Istanbul, I mean, you got to play with that expansion. I think that expansion is fantastic. Not only does it add a lot of cool components, it adds a lot of new functionality. And I know people are hot for Istanbul, and I initially was until, like, one day I just, like, was like, what am I even doing here? Like... this is just so much setup, and there's so many restrictions, and like, yeah, it creates cool strategic hooks, I guess, but like I always felt like the game was steering me that more than I was steering the game. Maybe I was just bad at it or something, but you know, as much as I wanted to like Istanbul, it just never really stuck with me, which is funny because a lot of my favorite games, people are like, yo, if you like that game, you should check out Istanbul. And it's like, I have checked out Istanbul. But yes, if you're going to play Istanbul, definitely play with the expansion. And yeah, if you want an expansion about coffee, well, hey, it's right there.
Right?
Yeah. Do you normally play it as a 2-player game?
Yes.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that I think works best as a 2-player game. Higher player counts just becomes like it's bananas trying to navigate all of the different tiles everywhere, or all the different people.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. I was thinking about how kind of like the crowded town square.
Yeah. So for my number 3, I have, you mentioned earlier, chill. You use the word chill, and I thought about, like, you know, that recent thing that's come up, particularly over COVID. You have, you know, chill beats to do homework to, right? You know, there's your lo-fi thing, and that came up a lot of like, what would I listen to, like, chill beats and play? And one of the games that immediately came to mind was Cartographers, which is a great flip and write game. And, you know, I know a lot of people like Welcome To. I like Cartographers because of the theme. I'm obsessed with fantasy maps. In particular, when I was a child, I was. And even still, I have framed fantasy maps in my house and everything. It's such a cool theme. And, you know, building out this grid, it feels artistic. Even if you're not really involved in the strategic aspect of things, you can sink your teeth into making your own map look beautiful, and you can bring colored pencils to it, and it becomes like this nice passive activity that you can just do with someone else. In particular, you can do it with someone else over Zoom or Skype or something now during COVID, which is an extra bonus that you can have that cup of coffee with someone at a distance. So Cartographers is probably my favorite flip or roll and write to date, not only because it's strategically good, but it just has that inescapably good theme.
Absolutely. I can just see, like, you know, I love the mapping of it. And so I just see myself setting my cup of coffee on the table and then just opening the maps up and just getting to work.
Yeah, well, what's also great is if someone like my wife gets really into making their, thing look really pretty, and you draw like a goblin card or one of the attack cards where you have to switch the map to someone else, and you could be like, look at my garbage art style that I'm going to fill into your map here, and now you're going to have to suffer that blemish and then hand it right back to them, and they're like, you ruined it all!
Graffiti on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what you got for your number 2 here, Chris?
So my number 2 was a recent game we swooped on that we just kind of saw at the store and just got it because it was pretty. And it's a game called Crystallo.
Crystallo.
Now, this game is just a deck of cards and some gems. And the idea is, I believe it's a solo game that they kind of just worked into a cooperative game.
Okay. It's like, this will sell better if it's a cooperative game.
I think so, because like all the instructions were all about, it just talked about it being a 1-player solo game, and then it says 1 to 5, and we're like, but we figured out basically you're just pulling a card and it has gems and orbs on there, and the idea is to create squares overlapping these cards in any kind of way, just as long as you can create these squares to cover the orbs. And there's these gems that are on these mystical animal cards, and as you complete these squares, you put these gems off of the animal cards, and then when you free all the animals, you take on the black dragon with these mystical animals, and it's the same mechanic of just creating squares with these cards and eliminating gems. In the final round, when you take on the black dragon, you basically need to fill the black dragon has 1 of each gem, and you do the same kind of mechanic to fill it all. And so it's just a great little working together, cooperative, beautiful game. You can fight the dragon together. You can free the mystical creatures that help you fight the dragon at the end. And it's just a deck of cards. It's a real fun, because you can talk about where to place these things. I can see some, it's weird because I could see some of that like commando takeover thing where somebody kind of quarterbacks, but there's so many ways to place it. It kind of, somebody less could be like, well, you could go over here and get one too. And you'd be like, oh snap. So there's a lot of placement and variety on how to place these cards on top of each other. I've never seen cards be placed in just layers like that, and it was something that was just really quick and easy, really really fast, but like really thinky. And so that's where the coffee comes into play.
It's really interesting. I thought that when I set off on this list that I would come up with a lot more cooperative games for this, but I couldn't think of many that were this kind of concise, low impact type of game that I would want to play over a cup of coffee. I mean, there's tons of cooperative games that are shorter games, but one of the real hallmarks of a good cooperative game is a sense of pressure and like this desperation. We could lose at any moment, and so we have to work on this together. But that actually sounds like something where it feels like, throughout it, you are building something together and you're working on something together, but it's not necessarily this intense pressure on you as you play the game, and it's more chill than that.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. And in fact, when you lose, it's just, hey, we've got pretty little some spirit animals that we freed at the end of the day.
Yeah, it did kind of sound like you were describing an acid trip for a while. It's like, if we get all the pretty spirit animals on all the, black symbol tiles all together, and then we might end up chasing the dragon. And I was like, what is going on in this Crystallo game? Like, did you buy this in an alley, Chris?
I think we found it at a Walmart, man. So, yeah, I would give it a shot. It was surprising. It was one of those ones where you just get surprised. Easy to learn, hard to master.
Nice. And I love the plug for Walmart here. We should talk to them about some sponsorship on the cardboard here. So,
at your local grocer.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Local grocer. So my number 2 is chill for me, but I've heard tell from a lot of people that it is not chill for them, and that is Carcassonne. Carcassonne is this game where, you sit down and you're like building out this puzzle. You don't actually have any language to interact with. You don't have to read things, and it's so easy. You just draw the tile and you place it there. And especially in my edition of Carcassonne, at least, it's in the rules that you draw the tile, you show the tile to other players, and then you ask for input on the best placement of other players. They're going to, have this nice, friendly conversation about, oh, this could go here, this could go here. And that is like Carcassonne as I play it with my wife, where it's just this wonderful time, and someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. And yes, there are kind of things that you're banking on or hoping that will happen, but it's just nice and charming and pleasant. Now, when I've played with other friends, they're like, yo, I'm going to steal your castle. You know that, right? Or like, you're never finishing this. This will never get finished. I'm seeing to it that you will never be able to complete this, and it's going to be worth half the points at the end of the game, sucker. And I'm like, whoa, dude, you guys play Carcassonne way different than I do. But for me, it's probably the biggest game on this list, or actually it is definitely the biggest game on this list. It takes, a little bit more time than most of the other ones I've listed, and it takes up a lot of table space, but there is some sort of, rhythm that you end up getting into with it that I find really enjoyable, and is just a really chill, wonderful game to play.
I agree with playing with certain people. My wife really goes the cutthroat way. So Carcassonne almost made the list for me. I would say it was an honorable mention for how much we play it, but absolutely we are the latter. I can't build a castle without her bogardening on it. I can't. We don't even do the farmers anymore. Like,
oh man, the farmers get cutthroat, man. And like, even with my wife and I, like, anytime anyone puts down a farmer, it's like, I see what you did there,
and I see what I'm going to do next.
Yeah, exactly.
and yeah, but I want to play Carcassonne with you guys. My number one absolutely contradicts like everything we're talking about, though.
Okay, so you're going to be like, we're going to play Twilight Imperium. It's an 8-hour cup of coffee.
Actually, my number one is Terraforming Mars.
Ooh, disagree with for this list, but love the game. So let's talk about it.
So when I was putting this list together, I was like, man, I'm going to throw a big monkey wrench in this, but I kind of had to stay true to it. I know that you're big into the themes of games as well, and we really, really get into Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
Like, we really get into it. Like, and so when I feel like I'm, rocking the corporation, we also, we play a lot on Friday nights.
Right.
We like to do a lot of Friday night card slapping. Mm-hmm. And so, slapping those cards down when I just drop a meteor and then it completely rocks her whole setup. I sip the coffee at my corporate table, knowing that I'm going to be the one that is going to lead this new era. We get so into it. Like, I just see myself sitting at a corporate desk, all of the options, and I'm sure people are familiar with Terraforming Mars. So I wasn't going to get too deep into the gameplay, but one of the most immersive games that I feel like it just kind of zapped at us, like, and I get so into it that I feel like the corporate bigwig at work, and when I'm working, I'm always drinking coffee.
So you are like the CEO of a corporation, and you're sitting back and you're like, this was the most momentous day in the history of your company, but for me, it was Tuesday. That how you're feeling there?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Well, for my number one, I went for something entirely different than you. I stuck with what I have here as kind of the overall tonal piece that I put together for this. But I actually think that this kind of works for our list of 10, because this brings us into a new space with Terraforming Mars, and then I'm going to bring us back to something that kind of reminds me of old school games, and that's Jaipur. Jaipur is a card game that has this, again, great rhythm to it, where it's, you're either going to be fulfilling orders, or you're going to be taking some of the materials from the center, or you're going to be taking camels, swapping things with this market that's on display. It's this great two-player, and for all intents and purposes, it's an economic game. Everything is about the choices that you're going to make regarding how you're best going to acquire these sales or fulfill these orders in order to take things off the tops of the stacks. You're thinking about how you're going to drain the stacks in order to force the end of the round. It plays extremely quick, but because of just the simplicity of these stacks, the cards that are lined up in the market in front of you, and the cards in hand, it feels to me almost like you're playing some bridge or something. Like this game feels obvious in a way that it could have been made 100 years ago, and I would have believed you. This is one where it still is a really tight, structured, and smart competitive game, but it allows you to operate at that instinctive level and be able to carry on that conversation, or just kind of chill out and listen to music and almost wordlessly go through the motions in order to have a really good game. Jaipur is, for good reason, talked about one of the best two-player games that's out there.
Yeah, I tell you what, that is one that's been on our radar for a while, that probably will be one of the next games we get. I've seen a lot of stuff on it, and that exact, I know I threw a monkey wrench with my number one, but I think you explained it right on. We would say that coffee games are something like you could look away, socialize, do something, then come back to and just kind of pick right up and know where you left off.
Right.
And it sounds like that you could do that with Jaipur. It sounds like that would fit right into our gaming catalog too.
Yeah, well, you need to get it to the table. And I think this is a good set of recommendations. I mean, here we have 10 individual recommendations making up TCBH's official list of top 10 coffee games to play. And I'm sure that some people out there got some beef with the things that we have on our list. I'm sure that there's people who are like, how would you even dare bring a coffee cup to the table? I mean, that alone is controversy for a lot of people. But tell you what, come to my table, eat some Cheetos, eat some Doritos, get crumbs all over my cards. I don't care. It's about the social aspect right there, especially now that we're in COVID. If that, if the price of having people post-vaccination coming to my table is that they eat sloppy food and put coffee cups next to my cards, so be it.
So be it. I agree.
All right, man. Well, I wanted to make sure that I gave an opportunity. Where can people find out more about Chris Douglas? Because not only are you this awesome dude who plays board games and, has your hands in a lot of pies, but also you have a lot of creative endeavors. So what you're working on right now, and where can people find more about you?
Well, DA are two letters that you'll hear a lot coming from me, and it stands for Douglas Audio. It's basically an umbrella audio production that I'm doing. You can go on YouTube and find me under Dixon Amway. That's my name that I go by, DA, Dixon Amway. And I'm using Roland drum machines. I'm using the Roland MC101 and the Roland TR8S. And I'm making a record for the end of the year. I have a couple of people that have been helping me with it. And I've been in a lot of communities, with producer communities and Roland drum machine communities, and just trying to get my music out there. So you can look up Dixon Amway on YouTube and SoundCloud, on Facebook, and I'm going to be posting videos more and more. They're going to be becoming more higher quality as well. And, I'll definitely be having direct links. So, you'll be hearing the sound coming from the machines the way that it's supposed to be. It won't be like, outer, it'll be inner. So I'm looking forward to sharing. I'm looking forward to sharing all of that, because I feel like I have something different. I've been in drum machines and digging into the culture for about 2 or 3 years now, as far as audio production, audio engineering. And I've learned a lot, and I think that I have something that is different. And some people in the communities are telling me to push it, so I'm going to push it for the end of the year. So subscribe, YouTube, SoundCloud, Facebook, Dixon Amway.
All right, I'll have links to all that there, and let me just put it this way. If you need someone to drop some references to both classic hip-hop as well as the Fantastic Four over a beat that might have either Top Cat or Thundar the Barbarian theme sampled in there, then Chris is your guy. I've been talking to him about music since, God, I was 18 years old when we were working at Bosco's together, and so this was awesome having you on the show. I can't wait to have you back on so we can talk about more of these lists and why you completely broke the nature of the list in order to shoehorn one of your favorite games into it, Chris. Thanks for coming on to the show.
Thanks, man. Sorry.
If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.